Dexter Morgan's Evolution is the story of a man who starts as an emotionless predator hiding behind a mask, and slowly, messily, learns to actually care who that mask is protecting and who it's hurting in the process. Today we're going over the evolution of Dexter Morgan and how he slowly learns to be honest about who he is, what he's done, and what he owes the people who love him. From the beginning, Dexter is defined by a trauma he can't remember, but that shapes everything he becomes. As a child, he witnesses his mother, Laura Moser's brutal murder in a shipping container and is left sitting for hours in her blood, an image that becomes the birth of his dark passenger. Harry Morgan, the cop who was working with Laura in more ways than one, then adopts Dexter and recognizes that this boy's urge to kill is different, deeper, compulsive, and impossible to fix. Harry doesn't try to cure Dexter, he tries to aim him. He forges the code: only kill those who deserve it, never get caught, and use the skills of a forensic blood spatter analyst as cover and as a hunting tool. By the time the series opens, Dexter believes wholeheartedly that he is broken, incapable of feeling, and that the code is the only thing standing between him and chaos, for himself and everyone around him. In many ways, Harry is the personification of Dexter's human side, in much the same way the Dark Passenger is the monster hiding underneath the surface. In early seasons, Dexter's evolution is almost accidental. He doesn't set out to grow, but the world won't let him stay static. In Season 1, the ice truck killer case rattles him because it's deeply personal and tied to his own forgotten past, pulling at emotions he claims not to have. As Deborah falls in love with the killer and nearly dies, Dexter gets a brutal glimpse at how his world and his secrets can destroy the people closest to him. Season 2 tears away his illusion of control when the Bay Harbor butcher case exposes the dumping ground of his victims and turns Miami Metro into a task force hunting him without knowing it. Dokes' relentless suspicions and Lila's dangerous obsession force Dexter to examine his own self-mythology. Is he a righteous avenger, or just another killer who's gotten good at telling himself a comforting story? His relationship with Rita also deepens in this period, introducing real stakes, a partner, kids, and the first hint that Dexter might crave some form of normality, even as he insists he can't truly feel it. Season 3 with Miguel Prado is a test of Dexter's capacity to share his true self with another human being. At first, he believes he's found an ally, someone who can understand and even join his code-based brand of justice, but Miguel's spiral into uncontrolled murder becomes a mirror of what Dexter could become without rules. It pushes Dexter to recommit to Harry's code not as a burden, but as something he now chooses in the alternative. Season 4 is where his evolution collides head-on with the fantasy of a normal family life. Dexter juggles being a husband to Rita and a father to their children while hunting Trinity, a killer who has successfully maintained a family as a cover for decades. Trinity shows Dexter a horrifying vision of what long-term compartmentalization really looks like. Abuse, terror, a family living in the shadow of a monster. Really awkward Thanksgiving. When Rita is murdered and left in a bathtub of blood, with baby Harrison crying in the pool of it, Dexter sees his own trauma repeated on his son, a moment that shatters any illusion that he can keep his two worlds safely separated. Post-Rita, Dexter's arc is defined by guilt and the search for connection that doesn't immediately corrupt. Season 5 pairs him with Lumen, a survivor of horrific abuse, and together they become partners in vengeance, targeting the men who tortured her, the Barrel Girls gang. For the first time, Dexter experiences something like shared purpose with someone who isn't a manipulative danger like Leela or Miguel. He sees how killing can sometimes be about helping someone heal, not just feeding his own dark passenger. When Lumen leaves after her need to kill is satisfied, Dexter confronts a painful truth. Her darkness was situational, his is permanent, and that difference isolates him yet again. Season 6, framed through the Doomsday Killer case, reignites questions about destiny and faith. As he faces religiously motivated murders and wrestles with the idea of a higher power, Dexter continues to insist that he is fundamentally alone, a creature of instinct and compulsion, not soul or salvation. Yet his growing bond with Harrison, brother Sam, and the way he throws himself into protecting Deborah show that his actions are increasingly shaped by love, even if he rarely names it. Deborah discovering Dexter's secret is the point of no return. In Season 7, her horror, disgust, and twisted attempt to understand and even protect Dexter force him to see himself through her eyes. This is no longer a hidden double life, it is an open wound in his family. And every kill now carries emotional fallout, not just logistical risk. His entanglement with Hannah McKay, another killer with a complex moral code, further blurs his boundaries and tempts him toward a life where he might actually feel seen. Season 8 closes the original run with Dexter confronting the roots of his code when Dr. Evelyn Vogel, who helped Harry design it, steps into the picture. Learning that Harry's methods were the product of clinical experimentation, not just paternal instinct, destabilizes Dexter and the code as something sacred. Deborah's downward spiral after killing Lagerta and her eventual death in the finale push Dexter to a conclusion that feels less like a choice and more like surrender. Everyone he loves either dies or is destroyed because of him. He fakes his death, abandons Hannah and Harrison to a life without him in a foreign country, and disappears into a self-imposed exile as a lumberjack. A man who no longer kills, but also no longer lives. Dexter. New Blood doesn't just revive a fan-favorite character, it forces us to sit with the long hangover of everything he did in Miami. When we first see him in Iron Lake, he's not Dexter Morgan. He's Jim Lindsay. He sells guns, sporting goods, dates the local chief of police, and runs a quiet, almost ritualistically boring life in a snowy small town. He doesn't kill. He doesn't stalk. He counts days of sobriety from murder, the way someone else might count days clean from drugs. Right away, that tells us something huge about his evolution. The urge to kill is still there, but he has reframed it as an addiction, something he can abstain from, rather than a core identity he must obey. In Miami, he accepted the Dark Passenger as inevitable. In Iron Lake, he's trying to live as if that voice can be permanently muted. The problem is, he's not actually healed. He's just white-knuckling in a place that's totally opposite of Miami in every way. It works for a while until it doesn't. We see it in the way he handles his routines. The morning runs through the woods stalking the majestic white deer, the strict schedules, the avoidance of situations that might trigger him. There's a tension under everything he does. He's not at peace, he's in denial. That's tightly managed. The Dark Passenger doesn't speak to him in the way we're used to, but its silence feels like something he has to actively maintain. And then Harrison shows up. When Harrison steps off the bus and into Iron Lake, it's not just a plot twist, it's the moment Dexter's evolution starts in earnest. For years, Dexter has told himself that leaving Harrison behind was an act of protection, that the boy was better off without a father like him. Now, faced with Harrison as a teenager, he can't hide behind that rationalization. The kid standing in front of him is angry, guarded, and clearly hungry for connection, but also deeply hurt by abandonment. From the start, their interactions are loaded with questions Dexter has never had to ask before. How do you tell someone you love that you faked your death? How do you explain why you left? How do you admit that you didn't trust yourself to be a father? At first, Dexter does what he always does, lies. He maintains the Jim Lindsay facade. He keeps Harrison at arm's length emotionally while trying to pull him close physically, offering a home, food, and small talk instead of real answers. But Harrison isn't fooled. He's too perceptive and too wounded to accept half-truths. The friction between them is the engine that drives New Blood. Dexter's old strategy, hide the truth, control the narrative, keep people safe by keeping them in the dark, stops working the second his son starts asking the right question. Harrison's presence also destabilizes Dexter's fragile abstinence from killing. The emotional stress, the fear of being exposed, the guilt over the past, it all stirs the Dark Passenger. When a local rich kid, Matt Caldwell, flaunts his own history of violence and entitlement, Dexter's resolve finally cracks. He kills again. And just like that, the life he built in Iron Lake stops being a recovery story and becomes a relapse story. The murder of Matt is important not just because it breaks Dexter's no-killing streak, but because of why he does it and how he responds afterwards. Back in Miami, most of Dexter's kills are framed through the code: investigate, confirm guilt, plan meticulously, leave no trace. In Iron Lake, his first kill in years feels far more impulsive. Yes, Matt is guilty. Yes, he's a danger, but Dexter doesn't have the same structured process. The line between protection and compulsion blurs. This is where New Blood sharpens the theme of responsibility. Dexter's lie about being Jim Lindsay isn't harmless. His kill isn't clean. The town isn't just some anonymous urban sprawl. It's a small, interconnected community. Every action has ripples. Angela, the police chief and Dexter's girlfriend, starts asking questions. Kurt Caldwell, Matt's father, becomes suspicious and emotional. Harrison sees his father's strange behavior and internalizes it. In Miami, Dexter could convince himself that his double life affected only a circle of adults who chose to be in his orbit. In Iron Lake, every misstep threatens a kid-heavy high school, a tight-knit community, and his own son who is just trying to figure out who he is. This is the key shift. New Blood refuses to let Dexter believe that his darkness can be quarantined. Everything he does now lands squarely on people who don't have the power or distance to protect themselves. If Trinity showed Dexter what long-term compartmentalization looks like inside a family, Kurt Caldwell shows him what warped fatherhood looks like when it gets mixed with serial killing. Kurt presents himself as a hardworking, salt-of-the-earth local patriarch, a guy who owns the truck stop and diner, sponsors kids, and is always ready with a smile and a favor. He is the unofficial mayor. Underneath, he's a predator who preys on vulnerable young women, keeps them in a twisted fake sanctuary, and then hunts them as part of a ritualized fantasy. The parallels to Dexter are deliberate. Both present a socially acceptable mask, both have a system for killing that feels like a ritual, both justify their actions in their own mind. But Kurt's approach to family is the most important comparison. He claims to love his son Matt, yet his parenting enabled Matt's worst impulses. He lies, covers up, and ultimately tries to avenge Matt by targeting Dexter and Harrison. Dexter sees in Kurt the nightmare version of what he could become as a father if he keeps using love as an excuse rather than a responsibility. Kurt loves his son in a way that protects his ego, not his soul. He refuses to confront who Matt really is. That's the trap Dexter has been in with his own dark urges and now with Harrison. Taking Kurt down isn't just another righteous kill. It's Dexter's chance to reject a model of fatherhood built on denial and violence. In killing Kurt, he's symbolically killing the idea that a father's job is just to protect his child at any cost, no matter who else gets hurt. New Blood digs into the question fans have had since the original finale. What did Dexter do to Harrison by leaving him behind after his death? Is darkness inherited? Is it taught? Is it both? We see early signs that Harrison has his own version of a dark passenger. He reacts with brutal violence when another student threatens a school shooting. He shows an eerie level of calm under pressure. He seems drawn to violence and fascinated by it. At the same time, he's clearly traumatized. He feels abandoned by Dexter. He struggles with identity, unsure if he's good or broken. He's desperate for honesty and real connection. Dexter recognizes the signs because he's himself and Harrison. This sets up a critical fork in his evolution. Option 1, repeat Harry's approach. Build a new code, teach Harrison to kill the right people, and try to channel his son's darkness instead of curing it. Option 2, do something genuinely different, something that doesn't center killing as a solution. For a while, Dexter leans hard into option 1. His projection of Deborah goes from being his fondest memories of her as his loving sister, who is a support system no matter what, to the criticism and conscience that deep down he knows is the harsh truth of what happens when trying to be in a loved one's life. Whatever part of Deborah is in Dexter is the last line of defense in protecting Harrison from him, so he doesn't repeat the same mistakes. But a father's love for his own flesh and blood isn't a feeling Dexter prepared to handle, and it overwhelms. He already tried to distance himself from Harrison before, and he couldn't resist a second time. When Dexter finally admits who he is and what he does, it's a massive turning point. He's never been this honest with anyone, not even Deborah, not even Hannah. Miguel and Lumen only got a watered-down glimpse of what he is. He lays it out for Harrison, the dark passenger, Harry's code, the years of killing in Miami, targeting other killers. This honesty is progress. It's vulnerability. It's the first time Dexter truly risks rejection from someone he loves by showing them his whole self. But the way he frames it is still flawed. He sells the code like a solution, like a way forward. He paints his life as a kind of dark heroism, like Batman. And he tells Harrison that together they can turn their shared feelings into something good by following rules about who deserves to die. In other words, he positions killing as a viable lifestyle for it, provided it is carefully managed. Harrison's initially drawn in. The idea that his darkness could have a structure and a purpose is intoxicating. For a kid who feels broken and alone, hearing "you're not a monster, you just need a code" is a relief. Dexter's evolution here is complicated. On one hand, he is finally being honest. On the other hand, he's still centering himself and his worldview. He's not asking what Harrison really needs, he's offering what worked for him, or what he believes worked for him, and trying to fit Harrison into that mold. That's the same mistake Harry made. The climax of Dexter's New Blood arc hinges on a single, devastating act: the killing of Logan. Logan isn't a target, he isn't a predator, he's a decent Harrison's coach, a cop who genuinely cares about the in town, and someone who has never wronged Dexter in any meaningful way. When Dexter is in custody and sees no way out, he makes a choice. He uses Logan as a means. He grabs him, manipulates him into a position, and kills him in a desperate attempt to escape and get back to Harrison. That moment does more damage to Dexter's self-mythology than any of his enemies ever could. Up until now, Dexter has always had a story he could tell himself. He only kills those who deserve it, those who pose a threat, those who are already predators. But Logan is innocent. There is no way to twist this into justice. It's pure self-preservation. And Harrison sees the aftermath. When Harrison confronts Dexter, it's not about the blood, the bodies, or even the years of lies. It's about Logan. It's about the fact that his father has become the kind of killer he claims to hunt. Someone who will sacrifice an innocent man's life to stay free. Dexter's evolution hits a breaking point here. All the honesty, all the attempts to be a better father, all the rationalizations fall away. He can't hide from what he is in this moment, even though the show writers definitely swept this truth under the rug for Resurrection. For the first time, he truly accepts that his continued existence isn't neutral. It is dangerous, not just to faceless criminals, but to genuinely good people around him. The confrontation between Dexter and Harrison at the end of New Blood is the emotional core of his evolution. Harrison lays out the case. Logan didn't deserve to die. Dexter keeps saying he kills to protect people, but innocent people keep getting hurt. The only constant in the chaos is Dexter himself. Dexter could try to talk his way out of it. He could spin, justify, blame the situation, but he doesn't. For the first time, he doesn't run from the truth. He listens, he acknowledges, he realizes that Harrison is right. When Harrison points the gun at him, Dexter doesn't fight. He guides him, literally and metaphorically. He tells Harrison where to aim and accepts the bullet. It's not just a suicide. It's a deliberate, conscious decision to break the cycle at the cost of his own life, meant to free both himself and Harrison. This is the apex of his New Blood evolution, regardless of how people feel about it. He's honest about who he is. He takes responsibility for the harm he causes. He chooses his son's future over his own survival. He finally acts in a way that doesn't center his dark passenger, but his love. In that moment, Dexter becomes something he has never successfully been before. A father making a sacrifice for his child that has nothing to do with control, manipulation, or violence against others. The violence is turned inward, in a sense. He lets himself be the necessary casualty. Whether you see it as redemption is up to you. But dramatically, it's the cleanest emotional endpoint his original arc up to this point in the series could have. If the original 8 seasons chart Dexter's slow awakening to his own feelings, New Blood is where he stops just recognizing them and actually lets them dictate his choices. A few key shifts make New Blood the real beginning of his evolution. He stops pretending he can be normal without acknowledging his darkness. He admits the truth to someone who matters, even knowing it might make them hate him. He faces a mirror in Harrison and has to reckon with the impact of his choices on someone he loves. He experiences a moral failure he can't spin into a righteous act, Logan's death. He accepts that the world might genuinely be better off without him in it, and acts accordingly. All of that sets the stage for why the later Resurrection material hits so hard, because Resurrection takes a story that, on paper, already had an emotionally complete ending, and asks a dangerous question: what if the man who finally accepted he had to die didn't? New Blood ends with Dexter making the one choice he's spent his whole life avoiding. He stops running from what he is and lets the story end with him. Or at least, that's how it looked, until Resurrection changed everything. Dexter Resurrection rewrites that ending and pushes his evolution further by revealing that he survived New Blood's finale. The revival reframes his supposed death as a narrative pivot. Instead of ending his story with tragic sacrifice, it uses his survival to interrogate whether someone like Dexter can truly change, and what redemption looks like for a man who has already accepted that he needed to die. The continuity shift also alters the weight of Harrison's action. Knowing Dexter lives undercuts the idea that Harrison was permanently forged into a killer by that moment, and opens space to explore who he becomes with his father still out there. Resurrection leans hard into Dexter's status as a legend among killers, particularly through the serial killer club concept and its charismatic, dangerous leader, Leon Prater. Prater's obsessed with the mythology of the Bay Harbor Butcher. This flips an important dynamic. For the first time, Dexter isn't just hunting monsters. He's dealing with monsters who grew in the shadow of his own reputation, killers whose existence is indirectly his legacy. Leon Prater represents everything Dexter fears he might have done to the world without the code. Prater runs an exclusive club of serial killers, carefully curated and ritualized, where violence is a status symbol and the thrill of the hunt is entertainment. He treats killing as networking, building a community around the very impulses Dexter has spent his life hiding and redirecting towards some warped version of justice. His origin story is very different from Dexter's, and imprints upon him a fascination with serial killers as opposed to becoming one. As Resurrection progresses, Dexter and Harrison become the destabilizing force inside Prater's carefully maintained world, whether they intend to or not. Killers start dropping, the remaining members grow paranoid, and the carefully balanced hierarchy that Leon built begins to implode. Dexter is both impressed by the sophistication of Prater's operation and disgusted by its lack of a code. He sees a reflection of his own meticulousness and developed ritual, but stripped of any claim to a higher purpose. His initial interest in Lady Vengeance personified his disappointment when finding out the truth that even in a room full of people who had the potential to understand him, they were still nothing like him. Prater's obsessive fascination with Dexter, calling him the elusive dark passenger, insisting on an audience at his manor, and treating him like a living myth, forces Dexter to confront how his story is told among predators. To Leon, Dexter isn't a cautionary tale. He is a role model, the blueprint for turning compulsion into power. That perspective terrifies Dexter more than any single rival killer, because it suggests his life's work may have inspired exactly the kind of monsters he thought he was thinning from the herd. Resurrection's emotional core is the alliance between Dexter and Harrison as they move from mistrust and trauma into something resembling a functional partnership. Unlike in New Blood, where their connection ends in a gunshot and a goodbye, here they actually have time to negotiate what it means to share a darkness and a code. Dexter is more open, more willing to explain the logic behind each move, and more conscious of when he's steering Harrison versus when he's listening to him. That dynamic comes to a head in the build-up to the finale, where Leon Prater decides to make Harrison the centerpiece of his twisted after-party. At a gala, Prater spots Harrison, quickly isolates him via security feeds, and lures him into a vault under the guise of exclusivity. He presses a gun into Harrison's back and calls Dexter, summoning him upstairs for the after-party, framing the entire encounter as a performance where Dexter is forced to watch the next generation be claimed by Prater's ideology. What Prater doesn't know is that Dexter has been planning for exactly this kind of scenario. In an earlier scene, Dexter handed Harrison something before he went to spend the night with his girlfriend. The episode played it as if Dexter was giving him protection in the mundane teenage sense. In the finale, a flashback reveals that the protection was actually a syringe, a contingency plan in case Harrison ever found himself at the mercy of someone like Leon. When the moment comes, Harrison drives the syringe into Prater's chest, dropping him, and Dexter rushes to take control of what happens next. Prater wakes restrained in his own vault, no longer the suave architect of a killer's playground, but a trembling man begging for his life. Dexter, standing over him, doesn't just recite his usual ritual, he talks openly about how their childhoods warped them both, acknowledging that they are two variations of the same trauma-driven pattern. He admits that he enjoyed the serial killer club, but then draws the line that defines his current moral center. Its members are bad people who have to die, not because they are competition, but because they are predators reveling in suffering. The key moment in his evolution here isn't that he kills Leon, it's how he chooses to remember him, or rather not remember. As Dexter prepares to take out his tools, he stops and decides that Leon will not be added to his blood slide collection. For Dexter, the slides have always been part trophy, part ledger, proof that there is an order to his violence. Refusing to preserve Prater as a trophy is a conscious rejection of the idea that Leon's death is something to catalog or take pride in. When he finally brings the knife down, it's not as a hunter claiming a prize, but as a judge executing a sentence he doesn't even want to memorialize. This moment crystallizes how far Dexter has come from the early season's cold, meticulous collector. He still kills, but his relationship to killing, and to what it says about, has changed. The Dark Passenger is no longer a separate entity he feeds. It's a part of himself he takes responsibility for, even when he still chooses violence. Resurrection also amplifies the role of longtime figures like Angel Batista, who has pursued threads pointing to Dexter for years, and now comes closer to a full reckoning. There's a confrontation where Dexter all but confesses, telling Angel something to the effect of, "If I really am who you think I am," an acknowledgement that the mask has worn thin. Prater ultimately kills Batista while attempting to strangle Dexter, further tying Dexter's past life in Miami to the carnage. The death of a fundamentally decent cop like Angel, in a conflict that exists partly because of Dexter's legacy, intensifies the feeling that every chapter of Dexter's life continues to spill blood in the next. What Resurrection adds, though, is a more explicit engagement with how Dexter is seen by others beyond Miami Metro. For the serial killer club, he's a myth. For law enforcement veterans like Batista, he's an unresolved wound. For Harrison, he's a father struggling, failing, and occasionally succeeding at being better than he was taught to. Dexter is no longer just a man covering his tracks. He has become a story people tell, as warning, as legend, as obsession. A core element of Dexter's late-stage evolution is that he stops trying to erase his darkness from Harrison and instead tries to equip him to manage his own. The syringe plan with Prater is a perfect example. Dexter anticipates danger not by hovering, but by trusting Harrison with knowledge and tools. He doesn't just issue commands, he explains the why behind each step, trying to ensure Harrison understands the code as a philosophy, not just a set of rules to obey. This doesn't magically turn Harrison into a perfect partner or a pure hero. Resurrection makes it clear that he wrestles with his own impulses and resentment. But Dexter's attempts are different from Harry's earlier experiment. Instead of molding a child in secret, he's working with an almost adult who can argue back, question, and push for his own version of justice. In doing so, Dexter transitions from being a project shaped by a code to being a parent trying to break, or at least soften, a generational curse he helped create. Across the original series, New Blood and Resurrection, Dexter doesn't transform from villain to hero so much as he shifts from denial to ownership. Early on, he insists he's a monster with no real feelings, hiding behind Harry's code as if it were the only thing standing between him and chaos. Over time, love for Deborah, Rita, Harrison, and even people like Batista and Hannah forces him to admit that he does care, and that caring carries obligation. New Blood shows him accept that he deserves to die for what he's done, framing death as the only way to protect Harrison. Resurrection complicates that by keeping him alive and making him live with his legacy instead of escaping it. Facing Leon Prater, choosing not to trophy him, and working with Harrison to dismantle a killer culture built in his own image represents a new, uneasy stage. Dexter, as a man who still kills, but who also actively works to ensure that the darkness he embodies doesn't simply echo unchecked into the next generation. In the end, Dexter Morgan's evolution isn't about becoming good, it's about becoming honest, about who he is, what he's done, and what he owes to the people who have loved him in spite of it. What do you think of Dexter's evolution so far? Do you think he can make up for what he's done, or is he beyond redemption? Let us know in the comments. And if you like this breakdown, evolve your own Dexter knowledge by slashing that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.